So Sculpted started many years ago in my home. I was just dabbling in permanent makeup, and Steve was doing his own thing someplace else, somewhere else. And when we got together as a team, I had this really long name. It was Sculpted Brows and Beauty. And I was like, well, that's great for the permanent makeup industry, but it doesn't really incorporate what you do. And he's like, yeah, okay, so let's just call it Sculpted.
Oh, well, Sculpted, period. Just Sculpted. It's actually part of the logo.
Yeah, it is. This is the period. This is in the logo.
But, yeah.
We wanted to make a statement, and we did. So I think one of the most important things about Sculpted and one of our founding principles is that not only are we artists, but we're artists who truly base our art in the scientific principles that help create art at a better scale, right? At a more accurate scale.
Like stuff that can actually be quantified and executed and re-executed. Like it's one thing for an artist to be able to, like one artist to be able to do something, but it's something else to teach somebody who can execute it and
replicate it.
Yeah, when you can replicate it, it's real. You know, anything else is really just luck. And when you tie art to science, we have something that's quantifiable and
replicatable, predictable to a certain extent. I mean, obviously skill is always going to be important and paramount, which is why getting your education counts. But if you can tie that into a backbone that has quantifiable data and scientific evidence, there's just no better. And we've noticed in the permanent makeup industry, cosmetic tattooing in general, has been kind of tying everything to like a rectangular hole they've been trying to put a square peg into. And we just decided to create the rectangle. What's it like working with my significant other? Significant.
No, it's good. And honestly, as close as we work to each other, we also don't. We can go a whole day without, you know, we're literally on opposite sides of the studio. Yeah. And, you know, I'm over here doing my SMP, she's over there with her clients, and we can go the whole day with very little interaction, and that's fine.
Yeah. People generally don't even know that we're together. And it's on purpose and not on purpose at the same time. I always say the only two things we argue about is the temperature in the studio and the music playing. He tattoos to a different BPM, beat per minute, than I do, and I'll be looking down and I'm like, why am I getting so frustrated? And I'll realize that it's at like 210 beats a minute.
Or when her music's on, I'm like an hour into the procedure and I should be done, and I'm like, got a quarter done because it's this slow, melodic. I can't do it. I need movement.
And where you're strong, I think I'm weak, and vice versa. Not weak, but like you bring out the better in me. So there's no way you would have ever caught me on videotape.
Nah. We gotta find that early clip. That's a good one.
I launched something and said a lot of profanities and things like I would never do this again. And where like the science and like the color theory, and like this like the methodical chemistry of things makes his head explode. And I just sit there and I explain it. I'm like, okay, but here it is scientifically. And then he's like, okay, now I totally get
I'm
that.
Like, I'm like A to Z overall picture, and she's everything in between. I get lost there. But
I like it there.
Yeah,
And you know, the good thing about being different artists and doing different things, so like he specializes in scalp pigmentation and I specialize in cosmetic and paramedical tattooing. And they're very, very different. So for artists out there who you guys are looking to like bring in both types of services, you know, it's a very different hand motion. They're very different body positions, different techniques, how the color theory relates. They're all extremely different. So we always say to our students who want to learn both, like space that out by a few months. Really learn one well before you kind of dabble into the other. And we learned that by really being next to each other, and him teaching me his SMP and me teaching him, you know, lips and brows and liner and stuff like that. And he would just say to me, oh my God, how do you do this with your hand all day? And it doesn't hurt. I'm like, right. And you've been standing on your feet for 6 hours doing this. Like, so it's just this blend. I think it works out really well. And then we get to go home and he's a killer cook. So, and he does the laundry.
Someone's got to.
Yeah, it's not gonna be me. What's the future for Sculpted? What do you think?
So, I've been doing this for 10 years now. You're a little bit behind me. And it's... I can't tattoo forever. I don't want to be behind the chair forever. And honestly, there's actually only so much revenue you can make buying a chair. So the first thing is obviously here, the product lines. So we've got the pigment lines coming out. We've got some really cool stuff for skin and hair and machines, pretty much all products. We've got the products of
needles.
Everything, the products, the needles, the machines, all of that. That goes through what we call Sculpted Pro. Then we've got the studio growth. So when we started, we had Miami. Well, you had the upstate.
I had New York.
So, but our first real space was in Miami. Then we opened Manhattan. We recently just opened Phoenix, and we've got a couple other locations that we'll be crawling into shortly.
And I also think continuing cutting edge education. Right. So when COVID happened, we pivoted on a dime. Before that, the online education space, really, it was there, but it wasn't really there. It was
frowned upon.
And we sat down and tried to figure out how do we deliver really incredible classes with the ethics behind it, and not just, trying to teach people in YouTube videos or Instagram posts. And for any of you guys who have taken any of Sculpted online classes, you realize, with 64 plus chapters and 4 complete demos, we built out a production studio in 2 weeks. So I think continuing that quality, accessible education is really important. But I think the monster size class days are kind of over, right? We're not all desperately looking for the next thing to watch on Netflix. So, and turning to these epic online courses. Now it's the bite-sized stuff and how to level up on niche little things, whether it's working with
developing art.
Exactly.
Instead of teaching the fundamentals and the foundation, which we'll always have, but I think we've just grown into a space where now, rather than teaching people how to get into it, now I want to take these artists who have kind of hit a wall and show them how to develop their art, how we can get these really hyper-realistic effects, how you can shift colors in the way that she does, and how we can develop the art so we can bring the industry up.
And bring that why to the table.
Yeah, always.
Because, it's one thing, like he said before, to teach someone to do, right? That's the how. And it's parroting. It's another thing to be able to critically think when you are working with a client. And to do that, you have to understand those little niche whys, so that way you can really develop and fine-tune your art to separate you from everyone else. What makes you special? And I think Sculpted's job is to help you understand what that is for you.
It's how you get sculpted.
It's how you get sculpted.